After discovering my husband's affair and enduring his vile threat to leak private videos of the other woman, I meticulously orchestrated a silent campaign that drove him into a downward spiral, landing him in a psychiatric ward. 2 years later, he's desperately begging me to reveal the full story to the world. I was walking my daughter to school one morning when I noticed one of the other moms staring at me hard. So I did what I always do in moments like that. I stared right back. See, my husband's kind of a catch. Green eyes, curly hair, good job, stable life. So, it wasn't unusual for some of the other moms in our daughter's class to shoot me dirty looks. Honestly, I kind of thrived on it. Like, yeah, you see what I've got and no, you can't have him. Mwah. Usually, this kind of thing happens once. I give them my don't mess with me look, and that's the end of it. But this woman? She did it again the next day. And the next. I was close to losing it. But then I saw something different, tears in her eyes. Like she was genuinely hurting. And if there's one thing moms are good for, it's gossip. So I started asking around. Turned out, she was new in town. A single mom. No husband ever in the picture. Honestly, it made me think maybe she just wanted a friend. So the next week, I decided to give her a chance. I'd seen her chatting with the other moms, being all bubbly and friendly, so I figured it was safe. But when I turned to say something to her, she looked down at the ground, her hand flying to her stomach like she was trying to stop herself from panicking. I thought, okay, maybe it's just anxiety. Nothing serious. That is, until I got in the car. Why the hell were you talking to that woman? My husband snapped, pure rage in his eyes. That stopped me cold. He never yells. My immediate reaction was to start crying. I think that shook him a bit because he softened and wrapped an arm around me, muttering something about how he hadn't had his coffee yet. I nodded, but inside, I was rattled. I didn't bring her up again. I just kept hoping maybe the truth would somehow reveal itself. Maybe it'd all turn out to be some silly misunderstanding. Deep down, though, I already knew. That same night, while I was helping our daughter get ready for bed, she said, "Mommy, Ben's mommy gave me this. She said if I read it, a monster would come get me. Can you tell me what it says?" Ben, of course, was the mystery woman's son. I smiled, thinking it might be some heartfelt apology or maybe even an awkward attempt to connect. But when I unfolded the note, the first words at the top read, "Open when you're alone." So I kissed my daughter goodnight, told her we'd talk about it in the morning, and locked myself in the bathroom. 1,000 thoughts ran through my head. Was the teacher involved? Was my daughter being bullied? But when I opened the note, it said, "Your husband has been threatening me. I didn't know he was married. I'm so sorry." That was it. No other details. Just that. Like a cryptic message from some nightmare. I went downstairs and opened his favorite whiskey. The second he heard the bottle, he was practically drooling. I filled the glass almost to the top, and he downed it in one gulp. As planned, the next morning he was too hungover to function, let alone go to work or take our daughter to school. Like the caring wife I was pretending to be, I made him breakfast in bed and told him a day off wouldn't hurt. I dropped Bella off extra early that morning. I didn't want to miss Charlotte, Ben's mom. And there she was. As soon as she waved goodbye to her son, I approached her. One thing about me, I'll always choose a woman's safety over a man's ego. "Charlotte," I said, "I need you to tell me what's going on." "I promise, I won't say a word." She didn't even hesitate. Like she'd been waiting for this moment. She followed me to my car and pulled out her big black iPhone. I didn't know what to expect, but then she opened a message and started scrolling. My stomach dropped when I saw the name at the top. "Here's something you should know. Me picking up our daughter from school was a recent change. Before that, it had always been my husband." So Charlotte thought he was just a single dad. I read every message. The threats. The videos. Intimate photos. He told her he'd leak everything to her job, her family, the school, just because she found out about me and wanted to come clean. I felt sick. Charlotte reached out and took my hand. She said she'd help with a divorce, anything I needed, as long as I could make sure none of her stuff got leaked. But I didn't want a divorce. I wanted ruin. He hadn't just betrayed me, he destroyed our family. Our daughter would grow up in a broken home because of him. So I came up with a plan. About 3 weeks in, I noticed the cracks starting to show. He was jumpy. Bags under his eyes. Hands shaking. Glancing at his phone like it might explode. "Everything okay at work?" I asked one night as I placed his dinner in front of him, voice soft, concerned. He rubbed his temples. "Roger keeps saying I'm sending him weird emails. But I swear I didn't. And my presentation files? They were all jacked up yesterday. Numbers were wrong. Files corrupted." I gave him a sympathetic look, hiding the satisfaction in my chest. My girl in accounting had come through, tweaking the files just enough to make him look sloppy, without drawing suspicion. "That's weird," I said gently, reaching for his hand. "Maybe someone has it out for you?" His eyes got big. "You think so? But who would do that?" I shrugged. "I don't know. Do you have enemies at work?" He was quiet the rest of dinner, mentally checking off everyone he thought might be coming for him. Meanwhile, the real threat was sitting right in front of him. That night, while he showered, I grabbed his phone. He hadn't changed the password, still my birthday. I had about 7 minutes. Just enough time to send a quick message to his boss. About that client dinner tomorrow, I think we should invite Melissa from accounting. She and I have some ideas to discuss. Melissa, of course, was Roger's wife. And everyone knew they were having issues. I deleted the message from the sent folder and put the phone right back. The next morning, he was a wreck. Roger had called him at 6 a.m., fuming. I swear I didn't send it. He insisted, pacing. Why would I suggest bringing his wife? Everyone knows they're separated. I gasped, playing the role. Oh no, could someone be messing with your phone? He froze. You think someone's hacking me? I nodded. Maybe. You should change your passwords. Which he did right in front of me. And I made sure to memorize every new one. Next, I brought Charlotte in. We arranged for her to accidentally bump into him at the grocery store while I browsed in another aisle. I watched from behind the cereal display as she nervously approached. Please, she said just loud enough for me to hear. I haven't told anyone, I swear, just leave me alone. Before he could reply, she rushed off. When I turned the corner with her shopping cart, his face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead, despite the store's intense air conditioning. Was that Ben's mom? I asked, playing dumb. She looked upset. He flinched, noticeably. I don't know. Maybe. That was weird, I said casually, placing a box of Bella's favorite cereal into the cart. Want to grab that whiskey like? You seem a little on edge. That night, he drank 3 glasses of the whiskey, though I had secretly swapped it with a non-alcoholic version. All the burn, none of the buzz. Frustration simmered in him as he waited for the numbness that never came. I watched him from over the top of my book as he kept glancing at his phone, jumping at every sound, checking the windows. I think someone's following me, he said finally, after a 4th glass. His voice was tight with anxiety. At work, at the store. I keep seeing the same people. I set my book down, my expression full of concern. That sounds serious, honey. Maybe you should talk to someone, a professional. He shook his head hard, eyes wide. No doctors. I'm not crazy. Of course not, I soothed. But stress can do weird things to your head. The next day, I looped in Vanessa for the next phase. She worked at a pharmacy and helped me get some mild sleep aids, nothing dangerous, just enough to blur the lines a little. That evening, I made his favorite pasta, carefully mixing the crushed pills into his portion. As we ate, I dropped it casually. Oh, I bumped into Charlotte at the coffee shop today. His fork hit the plate, sauce splattering like tiny red dots across the tablecloth. What? What did she say? I blinked, tilting my head. Nothing really. She just looked nervous. Should I know something? No, he said quickly, his voice too high. I barely even know her. I nodded slowly, letting doubt show on my face. Okay. It's just, she seemed scared when she saw me. He pushed his plate away, appetite gone. But he'd already eaten enough. Within an hour, he was fighting to stay awake on the couch, eyes heavy, words slurring. I feel weird, he mumbled, sinking into the cushions. Really tired all of a sudden. Poor baby, I said sweetly. You've been working so hard. Why don't you go to bed? I'll finish up in the kitchen. Once he was out cold, I got to work. I moved his wallet from his pants to his sock drawer. Switched his toothbrush, with one a slightly different color. Changed his watch by 17 minutes. Just little things. Things he'd think were his own forgetfulness. Then came the big move. I used his sleeping thumb to unlock his phone. Sent messages to 3 women in his contacts, just coworkers. I typed, can't stop thinking about yesterday. Let's keep what happened between us. Then I deleted the messages from his sent folder, but left the incoming replies that would come the next morning. The next day, he was disoriented, hair messy, pacing the bedroom. My watch is off, he muttered. And I can't find my wallet. It's in your sock drawer, I said, not even looking up from my coffee. You put it there last night, remember? The confusion in his eyes was delicious. I don't think I did that. I gave him a look of soft concern. You definitely did. You said you needed socks today. Are you feeling okay? Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. Then again. Then a 3rd time. I watched as he read the replies. His expression twisted into panic, confusion, fear. Something wrong? I asked, sipping my coffee. No, he said quickly, pocketing his phone. Just work stuff. But the seeds were planted. What had he said? Why couldn't he remember? Over the next few days, I stepped it up. With Tarara's help, we had a woman, someone he'd never met, approach him at a cafe near his office. You need to stop calling me, she said, loud enough for others to hear. I'm not interested. If it continues, I'm reporting you. He was stunned, stammering that he didn't know her. Didn't matter. People heard. People saw. The rumors would start. At home, I kept the game going. Things disappeared, then showed up in weird places. His clothes got rearranged. The thermostat changed on its own. And all the while, I was the perfect, supportive wife, suggesting doctors, rest, vitamins for his memory. I think someone's been in the house, he said one night, eyes darting around. Things keep moving. I swear I'm not imagining it. I gasped, clutching his arm. That's terrifying. Should we call the police? No, he said quickly, shaking his head. They'll think I'm crazy. Why would they think that? I asked gently. He didn't answer, but the doubt was written all over his face. Was he losing it? Doing things he couldn't remember? Was someone messing with him? The answer, of course, was yes to all of it. Charlotte added the next piece. She sent him an anonymous email. I know what you did to those women. Stop now or everyone will know. He got it while we were having dinner. I watched him go pale, his fork hovering midair. Bad news? I asked, slicing into my chicken. No, he said, his voice hollow. Just spam. But that night, I heard him pacing and muttering in his office. They can't prove anything, he whispered. No evidence. No one would believe them. I smiled, standing quietly in the hallway, listening. He was cracking. Little fractures were showing in his perfect exterior. The next morning, he called in sick, claimed it was a migraine. But I knew better. He was scared to leave. Scared of who might confront him, what might be revealed. I played the part, tea with honey, soft words, warm blankets. And while he slept on the couch, I snuck into his office and placed my next trap, a tiny voice recorder hidden under his desk, programmed to randomly whisper, I know what you did. Just often enough to make him question if he'd heard anything at all. Later that day, he stormed out of his office, eyes wild, sweat on his forehead. Did you hear that? He demanded. A voice, whispering. I looked up from my laptop, confused. Hear what? A voice. Someone said something. There's no one here but us, I said, frowning. He dragged his hands through his hair, making it stand on end. Maybe it's just stress. You've been under a lot lately, I said gently. He didn't respond. Just locked himself back in his office. That night, I moved into the final stage. Using a burner phone, I texted him, the women know. They're all coming forward. I watched him from across the living room as the message came through. His face tightened in horror, the color draining like a slow bruise. He blocked the number instantly, but it was too late. Everything okay? I asked, glancing up from my book. Fine, he said, his voice strained. Just work stress. I nodded, playing the part. You know you can tell me anything, right? The irony hovered between us like smoke, but he didn't catch it. The next day, Tara called me. He's acting weird at work, she said. Accusing people of messing with his files, locking himself in his office. Roger thinks he needs a psych eval. Perfect. That night, I suggested we have some friends over for dinner that weekend. It might help you relax, I said, gently massaging his shoulders as he sat stiffly at the kitchen island. You've been so tense lately. To my surprise, he agreed, nodding slowly. Maybe he thought acting normal around friends would make him feel normal again. But he didn't know I had already coordinated everything with Charlotte, Vanessa, and Tara. Each of them had a role to play in what I was starting to think of as his final unraveling. The dinner party was set for Saturday. I spent Friday getting everything ready, cooking his favorite meals, setting the table with our nicest china. He seemed calmer, maybe even hopeful that things were going back to normal. That night, after he fell asleep, I made the final preparations. I placed a woman's earring, not mine, just under his side of the bed, tucked barely in view, so it would be found eventually. I installed a small device Teresa's friend from IT gave me, one that would make our smart home glitch during dinner, lights flickering, music skipping, thermostat acting up. And, of course, I made sure we had plenty of his favorite whiskey. Saturday came. I was buzzing with nerves and anticipation as I finished setting up. The guests were due at 7 o'clock, 2 couples we'd known for years, plus one surprise I had arranged. At 6 o'clock, he came downstairs looking better than he had in weeks. He'd shaved, put on his favorite blue shirt, even styled his hair. For a second, I felt a pang, not quite regret, but something like remembering who I thought he was before I learned the truth. You look nice, I told him, and I meant it. He smiled, a real smile, the first in weeks. Thanks. So do you. I'm actually looking forward to tonight. I think I've been, I don't know, going through something, but I feel clearer now. I nodded, masking my disappointment. Was he stabilizing? Adjusting to the psychological pressure I'd been applying? That wouldn't do. Honey, I said casually, can you check the light bulb in the guest bathroom? I think it's out. While he was upstairs, I used my burner phone to send a text to his, I'll be at your house tonight. Time to face what you've done. I heard his phone chime, then silence, then quick, heavy footsteps. He came down looking pale again, a vein pulsing in his temple. Everything okay? I asked, arranging cheese on a platter. Fine, he said tightly, his knuckles white as he gripped the banister. The bulb's fine. Our first guests, Nathan and Stephanie, college friends, arrived right at 7 o'clock. George and Beverly, our neighbors, came soon after. My husband managed to relax a little, slipping into familiar small talk, but I noticed his eyes constantly flicking toward the windows, flinching at every little noise. Then, at 7:30, the doorbell rang again. I excused myself to answer it. Charlotte stood on our porch, her dark hair swept up, wearing the dress I'd helped her choose for maximum effect. Is he ready? She whispered. I nodded. As ready as he'll ever be. I led her into the living room where everyone was having drinks. The moment he saw her, my husband's glass slipped from his hand, crashing to the floor, red wine spreading across the hardwood like blood. "What is she doing here?" he demanded, his voice tight and shaky. Feigning surprise, I said, "Charlotte? I ran into her at the store yesterday and invited her. I thought it'd be nice to get to know some of the other school parents." I turned to the others. "Her son Ben is in Bella's class." Everyone smiled politely, but the tension in the room was thick. Charlotte gave a small wave, carefully avoiding my husband's eyes. "Where's Ben tonight?" Stephanie asked, making conversation. "He's with his grandmother," Charlotte replied smoothly. She was excited to have some one-on-one time with him. My husband was frozen, staring at Charlotte like she was a ghost. I gently touched his arm. "Honey, you spilled your drink. Let me get you another." I led him into the kitchen, away from the others. As soon as we were alone, he grabbed my wrist, his fingers digging in painfully. "Why is she here?" he hissed. "Are you trying to drive me insane?" I widened my eyes, feigning innocence. "What are you talking about?" "She's just another mom from school. You know who she is," he insisted, his grip tightening. "This is part of it, isn't it? Part of whatever's happening to me." I pulled my wrist away and rubbed it, eyes filling with tears. "You're hurting me. You're not making sense. Should I ask everyone to leave?" The suggestion seemed to terrify him. Canceling meant questions. Questions he couldn't answer. "No," he said quickly. "No, I'm fine. Just surprised, that's all." "Then let's get back to our guests," I said calmly, even though my heart was pounding. Back in the living room, I sat him directly across from Charlotte. Throughout dinner, I watched him watching her, flinching when she spoke, jumping when she reached for her wine or the salt. Sweat dotted his forehead. The smart home device worked exactly as planned. Halfway through the main course, the lights dimmed dramatically, then flashed too bright. The music, which had been a soft background track, suddenly blared and then cut out completely. "What the hell?" Nathan asked, glancing around. "Sorry," I said smoothly. "We've been having electrical problems. Electrician's coming Monday." My husband stared at me, suspicion in his eyes. I returned his gaze innocently and sipped my wine. Then the air conditioning kicked on, blasting freezing air into the room. Our guests hugged themselves, shivering. "I'll check the thermostat," my husband offered, eager to escape the table. As soon as he left, I leaned towards Charlotte. "You're doing great," I whispered, squeezing her hand under the table. He came back frustrated. I announced it was time for dessert and coffee in the living room. As everyone moved, I hung back to serve the cake, giving Charlotte time to position herself. When I entered with a dessert tray, she was standing near the family photos, holding one of my husband and Bella from last summer. "Your daughter's beautiful," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "She has your eyes." He froze, coffee cup halfway to his lips, his jaw twitching. She knew. He knew she knew. "Thank you," I said smoothly. "We think she's pretty special." The rest of the night was thick with tension. Every time Charlotte spoke, my husband twitched. Every time the lights flickered or the temperature changed, he grew more anxious. Eventually, in the middle of Nathan telling a story, my husband stood up abruptly. "I need some air," he muttered, heading out to the patio and slamming the door behind him. I waited 30 seconds, then followed. He stood gripping the railing, white-knuckled, breathing hard. "What's going on with you?" I asked, my voice low but firm. "You're being rude." He turned to me, wide-eyed. "Don't pretend you don't know. You invited her on purpose. This is all part of it. The messages, the voices, things moving around the house. You're doing this to me." I stepped back, letting hurt wash over my face. "What messages?" "Honey, you're scaring me." "Stop it," he snapped. "Stop pretending. I know you know about her. About all of them. This is revenge, isn't it?" Tears welled in my eyes. "I don't understand." "Know about who? What revenge?" "Maybe we should call Dr. Martinez. You haven't been yourself lately." He snapped. "There is no Dr. Martinez. You're making things up, planting things, trying to make me think I'm crazy." "Let go of me," I said, my voice shaking. "You're hurting me." The patio door slid open. Nathan stepped out, silhouetted by the warm light. "Everything okay out here?" We heard yelling. My husband instantly released me, stepping back like he'd touched fire. I let a tear fall, lightly touching the spot where his hand had gripped too hard. "We're fine," I said, voice trembling. "Just a misunderstanding." Nathan didn't look convinced. "Maybe we should call it a night." "No," my husband said quickly, panic rising. "No, really. Everything's fine. I'm just tired. Let's go back in." But the mood had shifted. The guests started making excuses to leave earlier than planned. Charlotte was the last to go, giving me a meaningful look as she thanked me. After everyone had left, we stood in the quiet living room, remnants of the dinner scattered everywhere. "What was that about?" I asked softly. "Why would he say those things? Why would you grab me like that?" He ran his hands through his hair. I can't explain it. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Things are happening that I just can't explain." I stepped toward him. "Like what? Talk to me." For a moment, I thought he might finally admit it, the affairs, the threats, everything. But instead, he shook his head, his shoulders collapsing. "Nothing. I'm just tired. I think I need to sleep. And with that, he trudged upstairs. I allowed myself a small smile. The evening had gone exactly as planned. Our friends had seen his erratic behavior, his anger directed at me. Charlotte had inserted herself into our family's life in a way that seemed perfectly innocent to everyone, except him. Most importantly, he was starting to question his own sanity. Phase 1 was complete. Now, it was time for the final act. That night, I cleaned up the kitchen by myself, slowly and deliberately washing every dish while mapping out my next move. The dinner party had sped things up beautifully. Now there were witnesses to his unraveling. Upstairs, I could hear him pacing in our bedroom, the floorboards creaking steadily with every step. When I finally went up, he was sitting on the edge of the bed, head in his hands, looking completely defeated. "You want to talk about what happened tonight?" I asked, keeping my tone soft as I changed into pajamas. He looked up. His eyes were bloodshot, with dark circles underneath that looked like bruises. "I don't know what's happening to me," he muttered. I sat next to him, not too close. "You haven't been yourself lately." The outbursts, the paranoia. "I'm worried about you." "I'm not paranoid," he snapped, then quickly softened. "I'm sorry. I feel like I'm being watched. Like someone's screwing with me." I placed my hand on his, calm and concerned. "Maybe you should take some time off work. Or talk to someone, professionally." He pulled his hand away. "I don't need a shrink." That night, he tossed and turned beside me, mumbling in his sleep about evidence and people coming after him. By morning, the bags under his eyes were worse, and his hands were trembling as he poured his coffee. "I think I'll stay home today," he said, not looking at me. "Good idea," I replied, kissing his cheek. I felt him stiffen. Rest will help. As soon as I dropped Bella off at school, I texted Charlotte. "He's home today. Time for phase 2. She replied instantly. On it. I stayed out running errands for a couple of hours, giving Charlotte time to do her part. When I got back, I found him in his office with the door locked. I knocked gently. "Honey?" "I brought lunch." There was silence, then the sound of papers being shuffled. The lock clicked, and the door cracked open just enough to show one tired, bloodshot eye. "Not hungry," he muttered. I could see chaos behind him, papers everywhere, his computer full of open tabs. He was clearly searching for something, chasing some answer that kept slipping away. "What are you working on?" I asked, playing dumb. "Nothing," he said quickly. "Just work." All afternoon, I heard him stomping around upstairs, opening drawers, moving furniture, mumbling to himself. Charlotte had done a perfect job. That morning, while he was showering, she slipped into the backyard and tucked a burner phone into his secret stash, the loose brick in our garden wall where he kept emergency cash. That phone had dozens of threatening texts to various women, including Charlotte. I knew the exact moment he found it. A loud thud echoed through the house, followed by a string of curses and then, silence. When he finally came downstairs, his face was pale, his eyes empty. "Everything okay up there?" I asked, glancing up from my book. I heard a noise. "Fine," he mumbled. "Just drop something." That night at dinner, he barely touched his food. His eyes kept flicking to his phone. I noticed he'd changed his password again. I'd need to be more careful now. "Nathan called today," I said casually. "Wanted to check in after last night." His fork clattered on his plate. "What did you tell him?" "That you've been stressed at work," I said with a shrug. "That we're fine." Relief passed over his face, quickly followed by suspicion. "That's it? You didn't say anything else?" I frowned, tilted my head. "Like what?" He shook his head. "Nothing. Never mind." The next morning, I woke up alone. His side of the bed was cold. I found him in the kitchen, still in yesterday's clothes, staring blankly at his laptop. "Did you sleep at all?" I asked. "Couldn't," he mumbled, eyes still locked on the screen. I looked over his shoulder. He was digging through his email, sent messages, drafts, searching for things he couldn't remember sending. "Perfect. I'm taking Bella to school," I said, touching his shoulder gently. He flinched. "Want me to call Roger and tell him you're sick again?" He nodded vaguely. "Yeah, thanks." Charlotte was already waiting for me at the school fence, practically buzzing. "Did he find it?" "Oh yeah," I said. "He's coming apart." She handed me a USB drive. Tara pulled these from his work laptop, emails to other women going back 3 years. I slipped it into my pocket, already thinking how to use it. "You're sure none of it can be traced back to her?" Charlotte nodded. Her IT guy masked everything. Looks like it came straight from his home IP. When I got back, he was still at the kitchen table. This time he was surrounded by a mess, bank statements, phone records, old receipts, like the scribbles of someone losing his grip. "What's all this?" I asked, dropping my purse on the counter. "I'm trying to figure out who's doing this to me," he said tightly. "Someone's setting me up." I raised an eyebrow. "Setting you up for what?" He really looked at me for the first time in days, searching my face for a clue. I kept my expression steady, concerned but clueless. "Nothing," he finally said. "Just work drama." That night, I put the next phase into motion. While he was in the shower, I plugged the USB drive into his laptop and transferred all the emails into his drafts folder. Then I set up an automatic email, scheduled for 3 a.m., addressed to his entire company contact list. Subject line: the women I've manipulated. The body included several of the worst emails. At 3:30 a.m., his phone started buzzing. I was in bed, pretending to be asleep. I heard him curse, then scramble for his phone in the dark, panicked typing, ragged breathing. No, 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 he whispered. This isn't happening. I shifted slightly, half asleep. Honey, what time is it? Nothing, he said quickly. Go back to sleep. But he didn't come back to bed. I heard him downstairs, pacing, making phone calls no one answered at that hour. By morning, he was a wreck, unshaven, unwashed, eyes wild. I can't go to work, he announced. Ever again? I asked, frowning. What happened? He swallowed hard. Someone hacked my email. Sent things, awful things. I widened my eyes. What kind of things? He just shook his head. I can't talk about it. But it's over. My career's over. I pretended to comfort him, suggested we report the hack to the police, knowing he'd say no. And of course, he did, violently. No police, he said sharply. No authorities. The next few days were a blur of his breakdown. He stopped showering, barely ate, jumped at every little noise. He started sleeping in his office, locking the door from the inside. I heard him on the phone sometimes, pleading Roger, IT support, anyone who'd pick up. I've been hacked, he kept saying. Framed. Set up. No one believed him. Why would they? The evidence was too convincing. A week after the email incident, Roger called me directly. We're concerned about him, he said cautiously. His behavior's been erratic. The emails, the accusations, the paranoia. Has he seen anyone? A professional. I've tried, I said, letting my voice crack just a bit. But he won't go. He refuses. He's not the man I married anymore, Roger. I'm scared sometimes. That planted the seed. Roger said he'd take care of things and asked me to keep him updated. The next phase started the very next night. I invited Nathan and Stephanie over for dinner. Just a normal weekday meal. My husband tried to refuse. They're worried about you, I told him. They just want to help. Too tired to argue, he gave in. When they arrived, I made sure Nathan had a moment alone with him while Stephanie helped me in the kitchen. How are you holding up? I heard Nathan ask. You seem stressed. My husband gave a bitter laugh. Stressed? I'm being systematically destroyed, and no one believes me. Throughout dinner, he rambled about being watched, workplace conspiracies, someone sneaking in to move his stuff around. Nathan and Stephanie exchanged uneasy glances. I played the role of the worried but loving wife to perfection. After they left, he cornered me in the kitchen. You think I'm crazy too, don't you? I chose my words carefully. I think you're struggling with something. And I think you need help. Help, he repeated, flatly. That's your way of saying I should be locked up. That's not what I said, I replied. But the idea was already planted. The next morning, I woke up to find him gone. The car was missing. No note. I called Roger right away, letting panic rise in my voice. He left during the night. He's been saying people are following him, talking about conspiracies. I'm scared he might hurt himself. Roger promised to alert the office and get security involved. 3 hours later, I got the call. He'd shown up at work and confronted Tara in the break room, accused her, loudly, of helping frame him. When security tried to intervene, he got aggressive. They had no choice but to call the police. I rushed to the station, the image of a devastated wife. They had him in a holding cell, pending a psych evaluation. When they let me see him, he looked terrible, disheveled, wild-eyed, pacing like an animal. You, he said, spotting me. His voice was cold. You did this. I let my eyes fill with tears, aware of the officer nearby. Honey, please, let them help you. Stop pretending, he shouted, lunging at the bars. The officer stepped in quickly. You. Charlotte, all of you. You planned this. You drove me insane. I stepped back, hand to my mouth. I don't understand, I whispered. Who's Charlotte? That was it. The final straw. His eyes went wide, then narrowed in fury. He started screaming about conspiracies, women he'd never threatened, evidence being planted. The officer gently led me away as his voice echoed behind us. Has he been like this long? The officer asked softly, offering me a tissue. I nodded, dabbing at my eyes. It's been getting worse. I didn't know what to do. The psychiatric evaluation was just a formality. His recent workplace behavior, the emails, witness statements from our friends, his outburst at the station, it all pointed to one thing, an acute psychotic break with paranoid features. They transferred him to a facility for observation and treatment. I visited often, the picture of a supportive wife. I brought photos of Bella, spoke gently about getting through it together. He sat across the table, glaring, occasionally snapping into accusations that only confirmed the diagnosis. Charlotte, Vanessa, and Tara kept their distance. Their parts were done. The proof of his affairs, the threats, the emotional manipulation, it existed only in private messages, in a burner phone I destroyed, in whispered conversations no one else heard. To the outside world, he was just a successful man who'd cracked under pressure, a tragic, but familiar, story. 3 weeks after he was committed, I filed for divorce. Grounds: mental instability. The judge granted me full custody of Bella, the house, and most of our assets. His parents, shaken by what he'd become, didn't fight me. They sympathized. I still visit sometimes with Bella. I act like the kind ex-wife who still cares. He's heavily medicated now. His words are soft, unfocused. But once in a while, I catch something in his eyes, some flicker of clarity. Then it's gone. No one listens to a madman. Charlotte moved away last month. A new life in a new city. Before she left, she hugged me tightly. "You're terrifying," she whispered. "But I'm glad we met." I smiled. Girls protect girls. As for me and Bella, we're doing well. I've started dating again, a kind, honest man who treats me like I matter. Bella asks about her dad sometimes. I tell her he's sick, that he loves her, but his brain is confused right now. Someday, maybe I'll tell her more. Or maybe I won't. Some stories don't need to be told. I still have the evidence, of course, everything Charlotte showed me in that car, everything Vanessa and Tara added. Just in case. But I probably won't need it. His doctors say the delusions are chronic. The paranoia, the obsession with being framed, it's all deeply rooted. Sometimes I wonder if what I did was wrong. If there was another way. But then I remember the threats. The women he hurt. The fear in Charlotte's eyes. I remember how easily he lied. How completely he deceived me, for years. No. He got exactly what he deserved, a prison of his own making, built from the same manipulation he once used so well. Poetic justice, really. And me? I sleep just fine.